What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Episode 27, and we're in May. How are we in May? Crazy. I don't even know where this year is going. Every week just seems to get faster and faster. Apparently that's a sign of getting old, but maybe let's change the subject. I hope you are all well. I hope you have all had a good bank holiday weekend and enjoyed the extra day. Hopefully you've done something that has helped you to rest and also something to help you to re-energize. I've had some really good chilled family time. Had sadly our last basketball game of the season. We are now out of the playoffs, unfortunately. So that's the end of the season until September. There's a few bits and pieces going on, but as a team, we are done and wrapped up. So that certainly frees up a little bit of time, which is just in time because I've got a very busy couple of weeks ahead with client delivery, which will mean some interesting light bulbs, I am sure, over the next couple of weeks. So I have my 3 light bulbs for today. A couple of them have come from the workshop I did with BKR. We looked at engagement, how as a leader you can get your teams to engage more. So be actively engaged, not just passively engaged, and definitely not disengaged. And we also looked at how you can influence when you are not in a position of authority. And I suspect that will resonate with a lot of you. We get used to being in that position where the fact that we are in a leadership position allows us to influence certain situations. But we also have a number of situations in work where we don't have that authority. And so tapping into a different set of skills where we can influence when we don't have authority. The engagement and influence, to a certain extent, we will cover elements of when we have our workshop this month, when we focus in on feedback, both delivering feedback to our teams, feedback that helps people to be more engaged and more motivated in their work, feedback that allows them and enables them to be a high performer, but also how we ask for feedback. And this has come out because quite a few people have mentioned that actually once people get to a certain leadership level, they're noticing they don't get as much feedback as they do in those lower level roles. And how do they ask for that? How do they approach that with their line manager? Also being able to get that specific feedback. So that's what we're focusing on the May workshop. It's open for those who are working with me one-to-one, those who are in the leadership community. The doors to the leadership community are open, and a few people jumped in on the offer last week to join us free for 30 days. So welcome to those new people. You can join at any time and just head to the website to find out more about that. Let's talk about the light bulbs from this week. So the first one, this links to engagement. Globally, 85% of employees are not engaged or actively disengaged, which is a crazy high stat. It really took me by surprise when I saw the Gallup report, and the fact that this is a statistic that isn't really shifting either. So this isn't something that's suddenly become a problem. It's been a problem for a little while. And we as leaders need to have better conversations, have more regular conversations, so that we keep people engaged and we keep people actively engaged rather than wait until it becomes a problem, wait until they're actively disengaged, that we start to try and deal with it. The additional element of this for leaders is that when our teams are actively engaged, it increases profitability by 21%. I appreciate not everybody is in an organization that has a focus around profit, but if we are connecting profitability with performance, then we're looking at better performance. And so regardless of what your organization does, we want our staff to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be motivated, to be engaged, because they show up better, they show up more often, and they show up as high performers, which is what we want. We want a team of people who are happy doing their job and doing it really well. We want to make sure that we are not waiting for people to disengage before we try to fix it. And in the workshop last week, I gave them a scenario. Somebody who has been a great person on the team has now started to disengage. We had covered a couple of tools for them to be able to approach the situation, and they had a breakout room where they looked at how they could address it. And it was interesting that all of them agreed that prevention is better than cure, as with most things. One of the tools that we talked through in the workshop was Gallup's 12 questions to help predict that level of engagement. And I went through those 12 questions and we talked about which ones they could start to introduce in their regular formal one-to-ones, also their informal conversations as well. And those 12 questions we will cover in the workshop because I think it's a great tool for leaders to be able to use to ask better questions. When we ask better questions, we get more detailed answers and we're able to work together with the people in our teams for joint solutions. And the conversation in the workshop was very much around they're having one-to-ones, they are having the formal structured one-to-ones, they're also checking in with their team regularly, but they all recognize that actually there were a few questions within those 12 that they would really like to bring in to their one-to-ones into those conversations because it would feel that those conversations would be a lot more focused and a lot more intentional. Part of the discussion was also that we can assume that disengagement is quite obvious. And so if the performance is fine, if they are doing what they need to do, if they're showing up, then we assume that they are engaged. Whereas actually some of these questions would indicate that actually we might not see that disengagement until it's too late. So using these questions would help to prevent that disengagement before it gets difficult. And in addition to that, not just difficult for the individual, but potentially difficult for other people within the team. We know that somebody who is disengaged and negative in the team can be quite a strong influence. So we certainly don't want that within that team environment. We looked at how they could improve their regular check-ins using those questions, how it was really important for them to actively be looking for this, not just waiting for the signs to appear. We want to be able to catch this early. And in addition to that, we also talked through Dan Pink's framework of purpose, mastery, and autonomy. Very similar to models you have heard me talk about before, but more focused for the workplace environment and how checking in with purpose, with mastery, with autonomy in their one-to-ones would help to facilitate better conversations that would then help facilitate better action moving forward. So that's the first light bulb, and that came from the first half of the workshop. The second light bulb came from the second half of the workshop when we were talking about influencing and why in particular we can't just use logic when we're trying to influence. The powers of persuasion don't always require logic to bring people on board. We can have a compelling argument, we can have a clear business case, we can have logical reasoning, and people still don't buy in. The framework that we looked at in the second half of the workshop was using the analogy of currency and trading in different currencies. The model that we looked at described 5 different currencies, and we discussed the importance of understanding what is most important to the person that we want to influence and identifying which currency they have placed importance on. Now, if we present a business case, that's looking at the task, it's looking at the outcome, it's looking at the benefits of the outcome of that task. So if that person values something else other than the outcome of that task, then talking about the task and the benefits of the task is not going to bring them on board. If they're not task orientated, perhaps they're more people orientated, we need to talk about the people within the task. This improves the efficiency. This helps the team to work autonomously. This helps the team feel empowered or more confident. We talk about the people rather than the task. We need to identify what the individual's currency is. What do they talk about? What motivates their decisions? What do we notice that they get excited about and passionate about? Those are the clues that we're looking for. So when we're preparing for a conversation or a meeting, we need to identify what do they care about? What do they need? What's their current priority? What pressures are they under? This then means that we are preparing in a more holistic way before these meetings. We're understanding better what currency they want to trade in when we have that conversation with them. As an example, if you've got a senior leader that values their reputation, then your pitch and your focus to try and influence them needs to be their reputation, how this is going to appear to other people, how this is going to improve their positioning in the organization. Talking about efficiency or talking about the logistics is not going to appeal to where their focus is. There were lots of different examples. As you can imagine, there are 5 currencies in the model that we discussed. This is just a couple of them. Ultimately, what I want you to take away from this light bulb is recognizing that different people have different areas of focus. Different people trade in different currency. If you want to influence in conversations that you are having, you need to understand what currency they trade in. Understand what is most important to them. People hear what matters to them. So your logic, your argument will be irrelevant, it will not land, and it will not bring them forward if it is not their currency. So think about this when you are preparing for those conversations. What's most important? What do they value? What do they need? What are they going to be listening out for? What are they going to be listening out for? Lightbulb 3. This came from the Elevate Your Efficiency program weekly call this week. So we were talking about routine and structure. And this is the 3rd week, and the 3rd week that we focus on how they show up and how they do the do. And already, as you heard me mention last week, people are already starting to feel the difference. They're already starting to see the difference and also starting to pass this on already to their teams as well. It will be really interesting as we go into week 4 to start to count how much time they're getting back. So that's one of the areas of focus for me. We want them to be better leaders. We want them to be more efficient. We definitely want them to be more effective. We want them to be better leaders with better balance. And what we want to make sure is that the time they are getting back from the avoid time is being reinvested, either going home on time or being reinvested into the strategic work. Be interesting to see how things are starting to shift as we get to the halfway point of the program. In the group call, we were talking about routine, and one of the participants shared that Mondays are great. They show up, they feel completely in control, they know what needs to get done that week. And in their minds, they've got it all mapped out. But by the time it gets to the end of the week, they're in panic mode and they're working an extra day to catch up. They know that this is the problem. They haven't worked to fix the problem. So great intentions at the beginning of the week, but no structure to make sure that these things happen. And this is what I was talking through in the group call. The structure is the 5th pillar of the PIPS framework that you hear me talk about all the time. And if you haven't seen what the PIPS framework is, let me know, or head over to YouTube. There are videos there that talk through the framework. The final S of the PIPS framework is structure. And we need the structure to enable the plan that we have of what we want to do. So if we start the week with good intention, but we don't have a clear routine, we don't have a structure that holds it all together, then the days become more reactive. And by the end of the week, we are in full firefighter mode. Now we can tell ourselves that the week gets harder, or the week got harder, or the unexpected things happen. Often what is really going on is that the structure is not in place. And so we don't show up with intention. We start firefighting. So one of the things that I shared with the group, which I think will also be helpful to you, is to design your week. Don't default. We want to identify non-negotiables, and we want to plan for 80% so that we've got some capacity for contingency. 80%, if we plan for that, we've got a good chance of making things happen. And we allow 20% wriggle room for the things that we don't know are going to happen. Because we know something's going to happen, we just don't know what it is. So thinking about, how do we show up on Monday? What is it that we want to make happen? How do we create a routine and plan to make all of that happen? Also, what do we need in place to have a structure that holds it all up together? Now, in the group call, the participants were all coming up with different ideas of what they would like to do differently within their routines, and also what structures they wanted to put in place. And we talked about changing certain things around, allocating specific time for supporting colleagues, for supporting their team, looking at prioritizing time in the morning to get their priority tasks done. And we looked at actually where they do this really well in their personal life. Where do they have a really good routine and structure at home, but not in work? And how can they mirror what they already do at home in the workplace? Because if it's already working elsewhere, it makes sense to replicate that in a different environment. When we have a good plan and when we have a clear structure, we don't need to rely on daily willpower. We don't need to rely on making good decisions every day. We just follow the plan. So that structure holds through the week. We don't need motivation. We just need the discipline to follow the plan that was made. Monday's strong and it gets to the end of the week and you are all over the place, then have a look at what your structure is, or if there isn't a structure, what does your structure need to be? Make sure that you're designing your week, not allowing it to happen by default. Because if you're allowing it to happen by default, it's probably going to be a week that manages all of the priorities that are sitting on somebody else's list. It's not going to manage yours. Those are my 3 takeaways for this week. As always, would love to hear what has been most useful out of those 3 for you this week. It's good to see the numbers of listeners going up. So I would love to hear what you're taking away each week. If you have any questions, you know where I am to ask. If you would like more resources on some of the things that I've talked through, let me know. And if you would like to join the community, just head to the website. The details are all there. You are very welcome to sign up and join us. And I will send all of the information of the events that are happening this month. Have a great week, a 4-day week, no less. Enjoy, make a plan, create the structure. And I will be back next week with a new episode for you. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Lightbulb.